Welcome back to Titan Academy. In this video, we will cover the containers elements in Titan Forms version 2.0. We will discuss containers, Autofit containers, Accordion containers, and Modals. Let's take a look at a container element. From the Containers menu, drag a container onto the canvas. The container element is just that. It is an element that contains other elements. So from here, I can say center this. We want to add any variety of other elements within this container. We can add text. You can add media. You can add buttons. Any element that you add within the container is, just as it says, contained within that. So if we drag this container around, the elements move with it. We center this, justify it left, justify it center. One of the best things about a container is that it can be saved as a component. So if you go on the gear icon into the container settings, save to my components, we give this a name, sample component. This container will then be saved in your component library with all of the elements that it contains. So if we want to insert that again, that component is now saved and can be reused elsewhere. Now let's take a look at an Autofit container. Remember, in our container element, we added some elements, and they are now contained within that. I've gone ahead and added a paragraph element as well, and I have created a get in Salesforce to pull the description field from a contact to that paragraph field. The description field, since it contains a long text area, can get quite lengthy. Look at what happens when I load this and pull that information in when using a regular container. The other elements get covered, for example, my button, by the text that is in the paragraph. And even if I were to make this paragraph a little bit longer, like so, that could potentially cover other elements like this image. This is where we would want to use an Autofit container. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Go to Containers and add an Autofit container to the form. And let's say instead of using this regular container, we use an Autofit. Notice how when I dragged that title element, it snapped into the grid. It's going to snap into a position like so. And let's do this, and let's do this. And I'll go ahead and delete this first strip. See how this is now organized all nice and neat, effectively into columns. You can change the way the elements are oriented, horizontal versus vertical. You can say center individual elements, like so, etc. And let's preview this again to run the get from Salesforce and bring information into the paragraph. Notice how the positions of the other elements are respected as the paragraph grows and shrinks. So an Autofit container is useful when you are building multiple layouts for different device sizes. It is useful for when your elements will vary in size. For example, a varying paragraph, as we've shown, a varying sized field, maybe even a varying sized image. Within the Autofit container, you can move things up and down, like so. This acts very similar to a form in the way the elements respect each other's positions as their characteristics change. The Autofit can be styled in many ways. For example, we can add some padding and so forth. I've also set up in here, behind this button, an action to hide my image when the button is clicked. Notice how in an Autofit container, when we click that button and hide this image right here, the other elements are adjusted accordingly. In this case, the button was moved up. That way we don't have a big blank space in the middle of the screen. The final reason that you would want to use an Autofit container is if you are setting up multiple devices, for example, desktop and mobile. The Autofit will assist in resizing the elements accordingly when you create the layout. Let's just create an auto layout, and notice how now the auto creation of this layout gives me a good starting point here on my mobile device layout where the elements are nice and neat and organized. Next, we are going to look at the Accordion container. I'll go ahead and add a strip before this, and we will come into Containers and add an accordion to the layout. There we go. Let me resize this a bit. An accordion container looks just like this, and the elements in it expand and collapse the container elements just like an accordion. You can set up in its configuration static values. Here we're looking at static values. Let's go ahead and maybe add a fourth. You can change these labels accordingly. Say we want to call this account, contact, case, opportunity, and so forth. And then within this element, you can add other elements. So say we want to put some media right here on the account. On the contact, we want to put some input text. On the case, something else. Let's put a button. And so forth. And then when we preview this, this is how it will look. We can expand or collapse the accordion accordingly. Another thing to note is that the accordion can be set up with its values dynamic from Salesforce. For example, instead of having static values, let's take dynamic values, sync them from Salesforce, and from here we want to select a pick list. A good one for this would be the opportunity. Let's say opportunity stage. Since this is dynamic, this will be read each time the form loads, and we will create one accordion step for each opportunity stage, like so. Prospecting, qualification, needs analysis, etc. Notice how the flag element that I put in the first step is displaying in each of those. For information on how to better use the accordion element with dynamic values from Salesforce, please see the more in-depth videos that focus specifically on the accordion container. Finally, let's take a look at Modal containers. To add a modal to your project, click on plus, go to containers, and find the modal right here. I've already added one to my project and set it up, so I'll go ahead and show it. Once you've added a modal, you can access it by going into the layer list, view, show layer list, and then either showing or hiding the modal on the window. Modal is like a pop-up window. It has within it a type of Autofit container. You can add elements into this container, same as with any other Autofit, and it behaves accordingly. Here I've added a first name input field, a last name input field, an email, and a button. And same as with the other containers, you can move elements up and down. When the text or the size of these elements grows or shrinks, then the size and position of the other elements will be adjusted accordingly. Let's take a look at a use case where we might want to use a modal pop-up window. So I'll go ahead and close this for a second. And let's add a strip and a table. I'll show you a simple use case that involves adding contacts to an account. So let's add a table onto here. Let's bring back our accounts up to 20 records. And let's put in our columns account name, billing city, and we'll also add an action and label it add contact. Then within the on-click action on the table, we want to bring up the modal. For that, in our action element, we will pick modal actions. We will enable this. We will select the one modal that we've created and choose show. Now when the user clicks on that action on the table, the modal will open. And let's size this accordingly. Now on our modal, which I'll show again, remember we put first name, last name, and email. I also have a submit button where we can call an action here. From here, what we want to do is create a contact for the selected account. So I'll go to the buttons action. We'll go ahead and we'll add a Salesforce push. We'll create one from within the Salesforce integration. So let's go to create new. We want to create a new contact. The mapping will be, for the account ID, the record selected on the table. That will hold the Salesforce ID of the account. For last name, we want to put the last name field, first name to first name, and email. Let's just search here. Email. We'll call this push. And then after the push is run, we want to close the modal. So we will add a modal actions element. Enable this, select the modal, hide. We'll apply this. And I'll go ahead and hide the modal on the layout because we don't want it to show when the page is loaded. Let's go ahead and preview this and see how this works. So here are my accounts. And here is the action column labeled Add Contact. We want to add a contact to Benford Tools. Click Add Contact. The modal opens. We will add John Doe, john@gmail.com. Click Submit. That push will run and create the contact. Then the modal will close. If we come back into the form builder, the gear, go to Salesforce, go to our integration logs, we can see that a contact record was created in Salesforce, and there it is. This has been a brief discussion of the various types of containers that are available in Titan Academy 2.0. For more details on these container types, please see the specific videos. And that's how it's done.